So we have had a motion to come out of executive session moved by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by Nisha Arora. The vote was 4-0. Right, Nisha? The vote was 4-0. And so we're now out of executive session. We voted at 2:10. And so our first item that we have under request for budget adjustments is SE1, and this, the Budget Committee has determined that it will not bring this item up for a vote at this point in time. So do I have a motion to move forward the discussion of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Funding American Rescue Plan? And I will just point out that this is to be a focused discussion on sort of the loans eligibility and the revolving aspect of that. Mr. Menarski, do you want to just give me,
Can I make the
There-
motion?
well, I was just going to have him give you the words, but if you want to make the motion. I mean, I was just going to say, because I think make sure the words are okay.
Sure.
Do you want to add any words to that, or is that fine with you, that motion? Okay, yes, you can make the motion.
So I'm making the motion to move up the discussion item, which was discussion of the Affordable Housing Trust funding and from the American Rescue Plan sourcing.
Okay, so moved by Leslie, seconded by Nisha. Those in favor? 400. Okay, so we welcome Bob Berlick and Amina Ahmad. Amina, don't you want to come up too? And I think, so, you know, I thought this was a very directive kind of discussion. This, you know, emanated from Pete Minarski this summer. I think the actual date was July 18th, although there was discussion before then. And, you know, we did see Bob, and I want to say it was February, but during our budget department meetings, and he updated us on the Housing Trust and provided a very extensive, detailed memo also, and we had a lengthy discussion at that point in time. But this really became more specific. Pete is responsible for, I believe, the financial administration of this Affordable Housing Trust. And so I guess the questions were, is both the loan and, but particularly the revolving nature of the funds, is this compliant with the obligations of the town under the American Rescue Plan? So it seemed rather legal to me, so I had asked that this be considered by the Law Committee, which it did consider it at their meeting last Wednesday. However, Ms. Fasciolotis then suggested that it come back to the Budget Committee. We, you know, talk about it a little bit here. But, you know, we've also copied in, and Amina has been our guru on the American Rescue Plan. So I think that, you know, from my standpoint, this is a bit more legalistic, but we're very focused on this issue. This is my understanding, so. I think you need to press the button.
Ah, the green light, thank you.
And you can also sit there, wherever you're more comfortable.
Oh,
that's great.
I'm standing here now, it's just as easy. I'm Bob Barilak, thank you very much for letting me address you today. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. My only goal today is to see if we can come to an agreement on a path towards whatever information the BET would like to get comfortable. As I said, I in my memo that Leslie spoke of a minute ago, I made the statement that I think that the government publications that have come out are very clear that not only the use of the funds for affordable housing, the way that the trust intends to use them, but also the means of use in the form of a loan, the proceeds of which will be paid back hopefully to the trust at some point, is within the four corners of what the Treasury has approved, but and I've brought copies of the memo that I've highlighted so I can show you, I think, 3 sentences in it, if you like, that I think support that position. But I'm here as your servant to arrange or help us assist, arrange whatever forms of comfort you would like. I have spoken with one firm that is I think, the premier accounting firm in the country for these kinds of financial questions that come up in affordable housing finance. And today I spoke with one of a number of firms, a law firm, that does nothing but affordable housing finance extensively. And either one of them is prepared, I believe, to render an opinion. If that's the way you wish to go, my only request, and it's really more of a plea, is to help me find the money to pay what I think would be about $5,000 for an opinion. And as I said, I'm at your disposal to go in any direction you like.
So I'll just speak to that one point. So thank you anyway, Bob, for, coming back and we want to get this resolved, and we want to get it resolved as quickly as possible. So, again, thank you for being here this afternoon. I think the last time you were remote, weren't you? But, so this is great. But I do think that, if we go to the point of having any kind of legal opinion outside of the town, that, again, that is all authorized through the town's law department. And that's why I think it's very important that, Amina and, Ahmad be involved here, her continuing role. She's very familiar with it. She's, certainly worked with the law committee, will continue to work with the law committee and Attorney Schellenberg. So I think that, resources, I guess, if they're financial, as a financial organization, then Pete, that's more with you and this committee. So, we will also look very much to Pete's involvement. I've asked that if Amina at all times on any of these discussions, make sure that Pete is involved because, again, as we come back to the Affordable Housing Trust, the overall thing, and we were told that the BET and the Budget Committee, et cetera, did not have to read this, get involved, that there was going to be no financial responsibility. But with this administrative role, we want to be helpful, we want things to move forward. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here, and just make sure we understand the path. So perhaps rather than asking for the opinions as such, I will just ask if maybe it might be constructive if you, Pete, and one or two of us, a couple of us, make sure, perhaps do a conference call with the financial people that not necessarily an opinion, but with your involvement and your whatever, your relationships or whatever, just a call, just to, head us in the right direction. And then likewise, and of course, Amina can be involved. And then, likewise, perhaps in reverse, have a conference call with Amina and your legal contacts, and, Karen, Steve Selps, maybe the law committee, Pete, I really want involved there too, and, a couple of us want to be involved, to do the legal thing. And it seems to me that by the time that is done, that hopefully Amina, the law committee, everyone should be pretty comfortable, and I would expect we could get that done in the next, month or whatever, or whatever, 4 or 5 weeks, whatever, I don't know, plus or minus. Is that a good route? I mean, you're just asking for a route, and, I'll turn to Leslie and.
The specific question, because the FAQ is clear that loans are a permitted use, loans for affordable housing are permitted use. What is not black and white in the FAQ, as I read them, is when the loan is repaid. What happens to the money after that? Can it be retained in a revolving fund and reused, or does it have to get repaid to the government? And the way I read these FAQs, and I've read them several times, that's just not addressed directly. And it could be that it refers to other statutes and other provisions that I'm not then cross-checking those particular regulations. So, and so the risk that the BET or that I as a member of the BET is concerned about is at the end of the day, do we have to repay certain amount of money that we have not thought that we would need to do that?
I understand the question and support the effort to be diligent in making sure that we don't end up in a tussle with the federal government. Leslie, to your point, I would be happy to go with a series of conference calls involving folks from this group with Amina, Pete, and folks from the Law Committee, with the professionals that I've talked to, and we can walk through the words. To Ms. Moriarty's point, I don't believe that there are words in the most recent FAQs that say definitively and clearly that a housing finance agency, which is basically what the trust is vis-a-vis the federal government, does not have to give the money back. My belief is that it's completely presumed in the documents that once the money goes to one of these affordable housing finance agencies, it's never coming back to the federal government so long as it is deployed into affordable housing. And that can be in the form of a loan. The language that I would point to that gives me comfort, and I'm happy to obviously share it with you, basically says, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, that for funds that are loaned, as of the FAQ that came out in July of '22, funds that are loaned are considered deployed when the loan is closed. And there are words in there that say that so long as the loan has a 20-year term, the government is no longer going to worry about redeployed money being used in a way that wouldn't have qualified had it been deployed originally. A lot of technical jargon, I apologize for that, and as I said, I'm happy to bring professionals into whatever forum you would like, and we can walk through it to see if you agree.
So you okay with it? Does that plan work for you?
I have a question, yeah.
Or Pete? Okay, but he only gets a chance after we talk.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
You can go ahead. Oh, okay.
Nisha? 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 You
Yeah,
have no
yeah,
question?
no, I do. I thought he was answering David.
No, I'm sorry. Nisha has the floor.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, Bob, if you could comment if other municipalities have gone down the route of utilizing such, financing thing to do. I understand that it looks like a technical kind of situation that we're in because the loan is, if it was a grant, this would be clear, but because it's a loan and it's getting paid back, that's why these questions are coming up. So how are other municipalities? Do you have any cases?
I can speak to you generically about that topic, and it's really not just municipalities that I'll focus us on. It is any governmental entity that functions as a housing finance support agency. Every state in the country has something like our CHFA, a state housing finance agency. According to their trade association, the National Council of Housing Finance Agencies, as of about 9 months ago, about 60% of them were getting ARPA money from their state legislatures and treasurers and were eager to deploy it permanently into affordable housing. The reason, and this is articulated right in the FAQs, the reason that this most recent FAQ came out and focused almost exclusively on an expansion of the words about affordable housing was that Council of State Housing Finance Agencies put such pressure on Treasury to change their obscure, bizarre, antiquated kind of thinking about how the state finance agencies had to account for money that they loaned. And what the Treasury said was the policy that they had embodied in their first concern about accounting for the repayment of loans was intended to prevent sort of a backdoor use of ARPA money for unauthorized purposes. But if a loan was structured with a 20-year maturity, The feeling articulated right in the FAQ was that the policy objective the Treasury was going for was satisfied, so that any loan that's made, so long as it has a 20-year maturity, and so long as it obligates the developer, the operator, to keep the property affordable for at least 20 years, full stop, all bets off, that's kosher. That's how I read the clear words here, and others will as well. But as I've said, I'm happy to work with any group who wishes to have consultation with other professionals.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, you had a question, hopefully, quick?
You need a mic. You need a mic, Jeff.
I'm going to bring the microphone over here because I had COVID last week. I don't want to make a room sick with the problem. I am just one member of the BET, and I'm going off the BET at the end of December, so maybe I'm not the source of concern. But I can say in candor, I mean, I spent some time as part of the ARPA group to begin with, together with other members who are here today. It is clear to me that use of funds for affordable housing was one of the intended purposes, no question about it. And you would think, when you look at the policies that are involved, that a revolving fund of loans for affordable housing is exactly one of the purposes that are intended by the Act. Nevertheless, the provisions that appear in the regs, and also as is expressed in the frequently asked questions, are clear that funds that come back into the hands after December 31st, 2026 are to be returned to Treasury. So that has the aroma of a repaid loan where the proceeds are coming to you after the December 31st, 2026. If you then go into the regulations themselves, there's a footnote reference there that you would think would be saving language. It has nice, attractive language that looks as if it's saying that revolving loans work. But when you go to the footnote and look at the source, the subject matter is something completely different. And it left for me an unclearness as to whether or not, if you in fact have revolving funds that come back to you after 2026, that maybe those are funds that need to go back to Treasury. When this was first proposed, the representation was made to us through the trust fund of, no problem, we'll be getting you an opinion from counsel. And there were various counsel, it was indicated to us there were any of a slew of various counsel with expertise in the area that would be prepared to so opine. I hate to waste money for a good purpose like affordable housing on a less good purpose like remuneration of the practicing bar. But no longer being a member of the practicing bar, I guess I've gotten more selfish. I'm concerned about there being a clawback, and we certainly have had in recent past an experience of a $90,000 clawback by the federal government of funds that were for an equally good purpose, but were apparently misapplied by the recipient. Lastly, I also want to mention that the frequently asked questions are clear, that the town, not ARPA, not the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, is the recipient. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a subrecipient, and the regulations are clear that the recipient remains fiscally responsible to Treasury for any misapplication of funds by a subrecipient. So it's not a question of the federal government coming and demanding money from the Affordable Trust Fund. The federal government will come and demand the funds from the town. Right. And so, again, I'm just one of 12 members on the BET. I don't know that any other members of the BET will share my view. But for the remaining couple of months that I have until December 31st, I will be staunchly of the view that I want the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to keep the promise that they meant to that they stated to us when this funding was done, and that is that we're going to get an opinion of competent outside counsel, not asking our law department to take that risk, but outside counsel to represent to us unqualifiedly that these funds can be used for a revolving fund, and funds that come back into the hands of the trust fund after December 31st, 2026 may continue to be used as a proper application of funds and not be returned to the federal government.
So just to kind of wrap this up, I think, maybe we can go back to sort of the beginning of what I suggested, and I would suggest that maybe the people to be involved in this process with you, and then they can report back at our next at the October meeting of the Budget Committee. And I would suggest that just for the sake of this, of the contacts and working with Amin and Pete, definitely from the staff, but do Karen and to do Jeff together and, to work and see what you can come up with. And then, if this is reasonable, to come back and report to us in the Budget Committee next month. Does that work for you, Jeff?
It works for me. I just want to caution that if this conversation, if this effort carries forth after December 31st.
Well, we will, we're trying to get this done quickly and whatever.
I mean, I'll be
If it
happy
needs
to
go
continue. I
past
just won't be
December
a BET
31,
member.
if it goes past December 31, that will be the December decision of the board, or the Budget Committee. Amina, does that work with you? Well, ask Karen. Karen, does this work for you?
Can you get along with Jeff?
Amina?
What do you think?
Pete? Okay, there we go. So there's your group, Bob, and we look forward to seeing you in about a month.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Sorry, Bob.
It's all right.
Okay, so, moving right along, and we're a little, we apologize to everyone, but it's been a busy agenda. So next up, we have the fire department, and they're in to request an additional $500,000 for an additional appropriation for the ladder truck. Now, in the, you could probably sit down, and if you're brave, borrow Jeff's microphone, and then you have two, at the table there. So now you have three. So anyways, to $500,000 for the additional appropriation of a fire ladder truck. And I'm going to add additional comment after we go through this on the sort of the same item. But we have Charlie Lidwicki, who's our Assistant Fire Chief and responsible for the operations of the fire department. So Charlie, you're in to request and tell us about inflation and
Yes.
backlogs and.
Yes. Good afternoon, members of the committee. When we started the budget process last year, we were aware of supply and demand issues and rising costs, and that even the timeline of getting these pieces were going farther and farther out. And with that being said, we were worried that the 1.7 million that was approved for this truck would not be enough. With that being said, as soon as this money was approved in May, we started working on all of our options. The first thing we did is we were working off of a set of schematics and plans for this truck that goes all the way back to the ladder trucks that have been purchased in the early 2000s in the town of Greenwich. So that's where we kind of base our thing on, based on what's best for the delivery of service that we can and the needs of fire ladder trucks in the town of Greenwich. With that being said, we went to Pierce Manufacturing. That's who we purchased our last truck from in 2016, and we said, we like the truck that we have, it meets our needs, can you produce the same truck? And the first thing they came up with, well, we have to see if we can fit you into the production line, because we're looking at delivery dates that are sometimes over 3 years. Some of the problems that these companies are dealing with is they can't decipher what the cost of the products are going to be 3 years out, steel, as well as other things, as well as they cannot bond more than a certain amount of projects, depending on the size of their dealership, or they're not allowed to even bond a project that's not going to be built 4 years from now, because they don't know if it will be covered. One of the company, Seagrave, had a problem with this during COVID, where they had to go back to a bunch of municipalities and start asking for $250,000 each, because they were going to be severely in the hole based on what they agreed the price on and what it ended up costing with inflation. So understandable on their side for risk liability. So with that being said, Pierce got back to us and said, well, we've shut down that line. Those trucks are not available anymore. This is the new version of the truck we're doing. We can take your schematics of what you would like, and we could put that into this new plan and see how it works. We also reached out to 4 other companies. The only company that got back to us was Pierce, because we have recently done business with them, and they're the only ones who actually provided a cost and a chance to be in the production line for delivery within 3 years. With that being said, that is the quote that was in the paperwork I gave you for, I believe it was 2.15 million. That is based on what we spec out for our truck, and it includes around $400,000 of added options that we have had in our vehicles for the last 20 years. And if you went on, say, the Houston Galveston Combine site, the truck that we're looking at would come in with a base price of like 1.75 million. And we're asking for 2.2, and there's some reasons why. One of the big things is this has a Cummins X15 600 horsepower engine in it. The regular ladder trucks, if you lived in a very flat community, you can get away with a 400 to 500 horsepower L9 engine. We've also had a lot of issues with our L9 engines, and we're trying to avoid that. Our trucks have aggressive downshifting programs to help save transmission life due to the amount of hills we have in the backcountry. We have independent front suspension, which helps with shorter braking. We have air ride suspension to help with the internal subframe, stopping that from wearing out earlier. We also have upgraded lighting systems on the truck because of the amount of time that we're on the highway, and anything that we can do to avoid these vehicles being struck while up there definitely helps us in the long run. So those are just some of the things. We also, another thing is that we carry more ground ladders than what is required by the NFPA. The reason why is because, especially sometimes in the backcountry, we can't get our aerial device close enough to the house, whether it's because we can't make it into the gate structure, or there's underground storage or septic tanks. And so we carry longer 35 and 45-foot ladders that other departments wouldn't have to carry because they had more access to their buildings in more of an urban setting. So that is where we came up with the price of the 2.2 million.
So I know Laura had some questions. Do you want to start here?
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. Do you want a glass of water? You spoke very quickly there.
No, that's okay.
We have some bottles back
We
there.
do have
Charlie,
some
if you-
bottles in the back.
In the very back, if you'd like one.
I only have 20 pages of information to try to get across to you, so this will be fine.
So one of the questions I had asked and submitted in advance was, what's sort of the base bid? And you just answered. The base bid's about 1.7, 400,000 is for these additional items that we need to traverse the backcountry, to access these homes that may not be accessible. I didn't catch quite the engine specs, but I
Correct.
trust you on that. We need a
And
little.
it is normal industry practice for there to be upfitting from whatever the base price is, unless you're in a community that's doing a much lower call volume. With very flat roads, you're going to end up with more wear and tear on the unit, which is going to definitely hurt its life. And we're trying to get 20 plus years of service out of this vehicle, as this is looking to replace a 2001 right now. And by the time this would come in, that truck will have 26 years of service on it, even more.
Right. So the other question I had asked is, there's new standards coming into effect, and I think you're trying to get this purchase order in before then, but in the articles that you sent, there are a couple things that are recommended, and I want to be sure we're being practical and thinking, forward thinking, so we don't have to do a retrofit later. So just, can you talk about some of those standards and whether or
Yes.
not?
So NFPA is redoing its apparatus standard, and it is taking a couple different standards. There's a vehicle standard, an operator standard, and a vehicle maintenance and upkeep standard. And instead of having three separate ones, they're combining them all into NFPA 1900. And so one of those is that there's going to be added protections which are in this vehicle, because it won't go onto the production line until after January 1st, 2024. It has to have the black box vehicle recorder, as well as some other features. With that being said, the one thing that we are saving, quote unquote, saving money on by doing this now is that we will not be required to be in the 2027 standard for the new EPA emission engine that's going to have to be in vehicles after January 1st of 2027. Because we're going to be taking delivery before that. That's another reason why it's hard to get quotes on trucks that are going to be delivered after that, because not all of the manufacturers have finished their specs for what that engine is going to be and how much it's going to cost to meet the requirements of the U.S. government at this point.
Any more questions? Nisha has a question? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. You looked down and I'm sorry.
Well, I thought I'd finish it. The other, I had the three-part question, so this is the last part of the question. It was about what are we doing with other communities, with the state of Connecticut, to really make sure we're maximizing any options that are available for outside funding sources, as well as making sure that we're in compliance or best practices with peer communities.
Yes, so we have two parts of that. One is there is an apparatus committee, and over the last 6 to 8 months, they have went and looked at 6 different ladder trucks, talked to the mechanics who took care of them, talked to the personnel who operate them, make sure that they like it and that it meets our standard of what we're looking to get out of the truck here. On the other side of that, there are not a lot of programs right now for apparatus placement. The main one right now is you can apply to get an apparatus replaced via the Assistant to Firefighter grant, which is through Congress. However, that's really very titrated to communities who don't have the ability to pay and are replacing 30 and 40-year-old trucks in rural settings. So it would be a very hard sell to try to get awarded a grant like that.
Okay. Nisha, do you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you, Charlie. That was a lot of information that you sent over. You just mentioned that one of the vendors that I think Pierce is what you just said is, and you said you tried to get a couple other quotes, but this was the only one that responded. I was just wondering how because I think there was one of the pieces of information that you sent, you talked about other municipalities kind of also having the need to kind of pre-plan their equipment. Are they other towns in Connecticut? I don't know if you talked to other departments. Are they also using that same vendor? Or are they using different vendors or?
It all depends on the community and what they like to use. For the most part, the town of Greenwich has used Seagrave and Pierce apparatus. I don't want to speak on behalf of Fleet because they're not here, but I know that they like the idea of all of our apparatus being of the same 1 or 2 vendors because that streamlines the parts and what is available, and also the relationship with where they go to get serviced instead of sending a different truck to five different locations. Pierce also has the closest service facility out of all the other companies that we can ask for trucks for, but we did reach out to Seagrave, who we did work with in the past, Schmiel, Sutphin, and I can't remember what the last one is off the top of my head. And like I said, without having a prior relationship with them, they couldn't guarantee us a spot on the production line, nor did they even want to entertain a price without going back and forth. Because on their end, it is a lot of engineering work to do pre-production before a dime is even spent with that company or guarantee that it's going to be spent.
So Leslie.
Thanks. I want to go back to your budget request this year, which was, you estimated 1.4 million for it. And if I remember correctly, that was a rollover really of the same amount that you had requested in the fiscal '23 budget when the project was cut from your request. So I don't know if you got an updated cost estimate for the budget amount, or at that point, you were just making sure that you had funding in the budget. There's no right answer to that.
Right, so this is one of those intricacies where it falls in the fleet budget, and fleet is trying to follow, obviously, the directions of the First Selectman's office, and we're trying to help as best as we can and give the knowledge of where we think this price is gonna fall. But just as a very small background, I can tell you that we bought, now this is not a ladder truck, we bought an engine in 2017 for $661,000. That same spec was bought in 2019 for $690,000, and then the engine that we bought last year in 2023 with capital funding it was $850,000 with what was it bought for, but the price is actually around $910 because we ended up having. We're trading in an engine, and so that came off, and that kept us under the capital funding amount. Just to show you how much it is, and if we looked at that truck going forward, we're looking at $1 million, which I believe is what it is in the capital plan. The last ladder truck that we bought in 2016 was 1.3 million after rebates, so it was a little higher than that. So obviously, it's a much bigger vehicle and it's a bigger cost increase than what we saw. Although the 690 to 850 to $1 million in 5 years also would be considered a large increase in
Yeah,
funds.
I think the point here is that the inflation on the cost of these large pieces of equipment is dramatic and more than average inflation. And so understanding our needs and the timing of our needs,
Yes.
it's an advantage to do it sooner rather than later because it's just getting more expensive.
Yes, not to cut you off, we're also told that there's another, most of these companies with the changes coming in after January 1st, there'll be pretty much an across-the-board 10 to 15% price increase again.
And there are 3 ladder trucks, correct, that are in
Correct.
operation within the fire department. So the last one we funded, as you said before, was fiscal 16. We have this one this year. Do you recall when the next ladder truck would be up for replacement?
Well, according to the fleet plan, they were supposed to be replaced in 23 and 24, I believe. I don't have it in front of me. I
So
could
one
look it up.
after another, those two are
Yes.
kind of replaced on a close cycle, so
And
that's
that was on
important
the
to know.
idea that they would be in service for 25 years, which is really the end of the recommended life for NFPA. Let's see here. Yeah, this is the newer, it was fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 is when they were supposed to be replaced. So we're at least a year behind on that schedule.
Yeah, and if I look at our engines, we funded an engine in last year's budget. We cut the one out of this year's budget, but we funded it in fiscal '23, but before that, it had been 4 years earlier, fiscal '19. And again, I think that was, against the fire department's request, in the sense that we did cut it 2 years in a row. But I think we do need during the budget cycle to get a better understanding of equipment needs and turnover and to really get a schedule that we can stick to. Because one, it hurts your operations running, if you can even run some of these older trucks and the replacement cycle.
Yes, if we had bought 2 engines last year, I mean, you can make an argument that there would be a savings of $300,000 plus right there.
Yeah, I
But
think
we have more or less had a program of doing one per year, and I think we can know that it's really, we don't want to make this a political discussion because we know that.
I didn't mention politics,
No, I
you
know you
did.
didn't. I just want to make
understanding the
sure
facts here.
that that doesn't head in that direction. So I think, do we have enough information at this point to get, I'm sorry. I'm sorry?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Of course.
So just to follow up, you said we have 3 ladder trucks in service. Some of them, I think if I heard you right, date from the early 2000s. So can you just give us an operational status? How are we doing? Are we okay? Because we won't accept delivery of this. I think you said 30 months.
32 months.
So can you just give a brief update on where we
I
are
mean, right now,
operationally?
currently, one of our newest ladder trucks up getting repaired up in Firematic. And the other 2 ladder trucks in service, but they're older and, things break on them, a little sooner now than they do, when they're obviously newer, so.
I'm sorry, did you say that a ladder, this is a question, follow-on question, a ladder truck you might keep for 24 to 25 years? Is that what you were saying, or did I misunderstand something?
That would be the end of the recommended life.
24 or 25
Yeah,
years?
so the frontline life expectancy should be 15 years and 10 years as a backup piece that's been.
We like to keep it for-
refurbed.
8 or so years of them recycle, move them around and give them over to the volunteer firefighters and stuff like that. So this way they still have a quality of truck when they get a truck.
Right,
When they get a
but
truck.
this, I just want this information for the next part of the conversation that we'll have, not necessarily related to what you're asking for. So, are you okay?
Well, I'm going to ask about the ladder truck that is in for maintenance. Is that, I'm sure that happens for
Yeah, it
routine
happened,
maintenance. but-
obviously, like any other vehicle, fire truck or your personal vehicle, things break on it, wear and tear and stuff like that. So they're just doing some servicing on the aerial and some stabilizer part that broke that just, just happened to break, Not much we could do about it.
Okay, there was an email that was circulated that said one of them didn't pass inspection, so is that the one that is?
Yeah, that's when they get the aerial service,
Okay,
right,
all right,
correct.
thank you.
Correct.
Nisha, did you have something more? Or are you okay? I'm fine. Okay, so are we ready to vote on this? Is there a motion?
Actually, let me just clarify, I think you had mentioned this to me earlier, but this is being funded out of capital non-recurring, which is consistent with how we funded most of the other fire truck, the 1.4 million, that's correct?
Right, so you brought up a good point, and when I said this was something that perhaps we, and again, as it's being presented, this is being funded out of capital non-recurring, and I guess what you have now brought up now, and I was going to bring it up afterwards, is because we don't necessarily talk about how we're funding something when we do it, but you know, the question is we've just talked about here, we've sort of morphed into another conversation, that this is equipment that could be used for, certainly, your ideal is 8, but you then still using it within the department and it's available to you, but it might be 15 years or 25 years. So in other words, the depreciable life is substantially longer than, say, our town mechanism for funding, which is basically 8 years. So I just wanted to make that point. So do you want to continue this discussion now, or would you rather do it, approve
No,
this
I
and
just-
continue the discussion afterwards?
We typically do identify or have it point out this
Right.
funding source. So I just wanted to confirm that at this point, that's the recommendation from our finance department, capital non-recurring, we have the funds available. So I'll make the motion to approve $500,000 of an additional appropriation for the fire ladder truck.
And okay, so Leslie's making that motion, and Nisha Nisha Rohrer has seconded that. Are you making that motion as a routine or non-routine motion?
I would say routine, actually.
Okay, routine. And you're fine with that, Nisha?
I would agree, yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Okay, so those in favor? Okay, so that motion has passed 4-0-0. So can we, and this is where I was a little bit shaky because I didn't know whether we need to bring the other up with a motion to discuss the financing of the engine?
I would,
Do we need a motion to discuss that or add it to the agenda?
I think you can just keep going.
Okay, we're going to keep going. So, you know, one of the things that we talked about was whether this should be funded with capital non-recurring, or whether, as this is a longer life depreciable item, we should be financing this with bonding. And as you know, you're coming here, then next month you're going to the RTM. So there isn't any kind of co-thing the way we have with one or two of our other projects. So, the question is, should it be done with bonding? And then over the weekend, actually, Pete prepared a bonding resolution after the discussion, but it needed additional information, which Pete obtained yesterday. And, you know, Roland has been out for 2.5 weeks, so you have to give him our sympathy because he has been on a trial and he has been on jury duty. So yesterday, in the morning, Pete then found out that, yes, right now, of this project, because I thought it was bonded, to be very honest, only 102,000 of the $1,000,007 has a bonding resolution, or is within our bonding group, and 1,598,000 is not bonded. You know, it's really being funded out of our, you know, from the cash side. So, I mean, quite frankly, this to me is a bondable item that makes sense to bond, which has nothing, I mean, this is now a finance discussion. This is, you know, and so I'm wondering if there is interest in moving this to being 500,000 for a bonded transaction versus capital non-recurring.
Can I, only because this is kind of new information for all of us sitting here right now. Can I make a recommendation, which is for the Budget Committee at this juncture not to take that up. I think to have discussions with the Finance Department over the next few days, and we can make a recommendation. The chair can make a recommendation to put it on the full BET's agenda for Monday if we change the authorization from the currently approved one, which is capital non-recurring, to a bond. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if we can really
That makes sense to me.
Is that
resolve it
good
now.
for you?
Yes.
Nisha? Yeah, I mean, again, I hope that you do talk to finance and that we, again, this is this might be in reverse how some people think, right? It's it's just, I think to me, this is a bondable project. And I'll also add, while normally we don't bond for vehicles, usually those are much smaller vehicles. They aren't large ladder trucks that are depreciable over so many years. And Roland, I don't know do we have any idea how many years we depreciate a ladder truck? I mean, we've heard what the life is from the department standpoint, but do you know what we do here? I know, I would assume you or someone would make that decision, not fleet.
We kind of treat all the vehicles together as one group. We don't separate out police cars from dump trucks or fire trucks.
Well, I would just add, as you discuss it, that to me, there's a big difference between a police car at whatever the number is today, 75,000, I'll just use an arbitrary number, and $2.2 million. Just a comment in terms of where we are and our financial plan. Okay, so I think we finished that subject.
Well,
Right.
if I could just add, though, knowing now that there'll be 1 or 2 more requests for ladder trucks in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, we should probably figure this out, so we're consistent.
But just to make an observation, and maybe what's interesting is you got information that the truck appropriation wasn't considered one way in the bond fund, right? But
I'm sorry?
looking at open capital, the only vehicle which has been in the bond fund right now is the 2023 engine for $850,000. Everything else is in the Z fund. So again, that's why I'd be looking to a recommendation from the Finance Department on the best way to handle this.
So I'm sorry, what did you just say was with the engine? What did we do with the engine?
The 2023 engine.
You know, so I'm looking at the last open capital report that was distributed doesn't have the fiscal 24 appropriations on it yet. So I can't see on this report how the ladder truck was handled, but in 23, the engine was bonded.
So the engine was bonded. And so again, thank you, Leslie. I don't have this information either. Pete, maybe you could, or Roland, send us the listing or current listing of what's bonded, what isn't bonded. I think I had mentioned that I had gone into our official statement. I thought, and maybe this, and I might be totally imagining something. I thought at one point we actually listed in our official statement when we issue the bonds, what's being bonded or what's in the, but I couldn't find that, I think, in the last one. Is that correct or incorrect?
Lindsay stopped that about 5 years ago. When you say you want a list for the current year or all the
Well,
previous years?
I don't, I mean,
Roland
my
has that
own.
in a database.
the
We
current-
have that.
The current year, maybe another year, just so, just kind of what Leslie's talking
Well,
about.
I'm just wondering, does the open appropriation statement do enough of the detail for you? We get this upon request. That might be the easier thing to publish.
Okay, so Leslie's just given us an easier way of doing it. I went for one way, official statement, I'm not trying to create. So Leslie's given us the easy way. So thank you, Leslie. Okay, so we have, and now I've moved and I apologize because, I think that Charlie didn't identify who was with him, and he also had Chief McHugh, Joseph McHugh, and our latest Assistant Fire Chief, Justin McCarthy, and both of them should have been introduced too, and so, I apologize that they weren't, and I meant to, and then all of a sudden, in this discussion of financing, they escaped. So anyway, thank you. Okay, so next we have the the police department, and they're coming to the Budget Committee to request $66,000 for an approval to use some dispatch center upgrades, which relate to the technology aspect of it.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Yes, so we need to, we just currently did an upgrade on our next-gen system, which does all of our CAD and E911. Actually happened last night. And this expenditure is to upgrade the software that is outserved its life or past its years of use. It's the Sonic Wall is at the end of a 5-year cycle. That's part of this, part of the amount, which protects the communications to and from, the CAD communications from the dispatch center to the police officers. The other is the software servers and an upgrade to the actual data storage for it, for all the dispatch terminals in the department. So that's what that's what we're asking for.
So, I mean, this was updated, you said like 5 years ago, or something like that? Is that what it-
When these were last purchased, yeah, they have the Sonic Wall is a 5-year life cycle, where the other, the servers and the data storage for the servers is 8 years, which is, they're now at the end of it. So it'll be an upgrade from that, which coincides with the upgrade that we just did, that we were behind because of other aspects we had to do with our computer system, to get that up to speed for, cybersecurity and stuff.
Laura?
Thank you, Deputy Chief Zuccarello. So we saw you in May for a capital program from the same grant fund. And I mean, at the time, I think we were pleased to see the money being spent because it is there to be spent, and this seems in keeping with the purpose of the fund. So I had asked a question about what the balance of the grant fund was, and it's a healthy balance, so I see no issue with this.
Any question, Leslie or Nisha? Okay, so you've had the fastest session, but don't leave yet. So
Oh.
do we have any motions to approve?
Yeah, I'll make them,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Jeff's hand up.
It's just that there's a small difference between the total of the 3 quotes and the 66,000. By my math, you're using about 64.5.
Oh, yes, it's 64,436 and 15 cents is actually what these 3 invoices are for. I just noticed, I just looked at the bid was requested, it said 66,000, but the actual 3 bills are those. It's $64,436.15.
So do you want 65,000 or do you want
I-
66,000?
I'll take 66,000,
Okay.
because we are planning on using more of the E911 fund later in the year for accreditation purposes in the dispatch center, which would cover the rest of the money that is coming every quarter.
But this only can be used for this project? and
Yes,
this
no,
is
yes,
appropriate,
yes,
right, okay.
yes. So I mean,
Well,
if
okay.
I only need the 64,000.
And then you return to your fund what you don't use?
Yes.
So Leslie, you started to
yes.
give a motion?
I will make the motion to approve the use of $66,000 of the 911 fund for dispatch center upgrade.
And I will second.
And Leslie and Nisha, Nisha Rohr, Leslie Moriarty moved and Nisha Rohr seconded. Leslie and Nisha, are you routine?
I think routine.
Okay. Okay, so those in favor? So that is passed, 400.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a
you for
great rest of your
visiting
day.
with us this afternoon. Sorry we had to delay this. Okay, so now we have Public Works. I saw Amy earlier. Do we know where Amy is?
Well, could I make a motion to take up the senior tax relief since we have Lori Contadino and Kip Burkhardt while we're getting Amy?
That's fine with me.
I'll second that.
Are those in favor? Aye. So we have with us Lori Contadino, the Executive Director of the Commission on Aging, and we have Kip Bergwager, who is on the board of the Commission on Aging, and they're here to present the senior, I just, the, what do we call this here? It's fancier name though than that. The amended senior and disabled homeowners tax relief credit program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for bringing us up here now. The Commission on Aging is requesting that the Board of Estimate and Taxation approve an amendment to the property tax relief ordinance. The BET has played a major role in the development over several years of the property tax relief ordinance. Ordinarily, I would suggest a brief history of this matter to help focus the request, but I know some of you have heard this more than once. So I'll just ask, if you don't mind, I will just go directly into this is something that was started in year 2000, and it had a 5-year sunset clause at that time, and every 5 years, the clause gets amended and add another 5 years. Last time around, we came to the Board of Selectmen just as a senior relief ordinance, and the Board of Selectmen added permanently disabled residents to the relief. There are only, I think, if I remember correctly, only 8 people who are in that condition and benefits from this. Everything else is for seniors. And we would like, again, to amend the sunset clause. The way it's written right now is this has to be amended. It has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen and the BET and the RTM before December 31, or by December 31 of this year, and it will expire in June 30th of next year. And so we want to amend the ordinance by adding 5 years to each of those dates. And nothing else will be changed in the language of the ordinance. The same mechanisms for computing the amount of the qualification level of income, the amount of the credits, all of that will stay the same. Those are based on cost of living and other movable or changeable numbers, so it keeps up to date with current conditions. I also want to just mention that this has been approved unanimously by the Board of Selectmen, the BET, and the RTM in past years, so.
And I believe the Law Committee approved it 2-0-0 at its Law Committee meeting
Yes,
last Wednesday.
I'm sorry not to have mentioned that. I apologize to the law.
No, I
committee.
just wanted to inform, our Budget Committee, before we proceed. I think, I see, I guess I don't see any more. Lauren Elliott was here earlier, but it's my understanding that that this program is available to people who live in single-family or multifamily housing, condominiums, cooperatives, and, that every year for the program, there's a tremendous effort for reach out, by you, Laurie, and your colleagues at the Senior Center, Commission of Aging, and Lauren, and she contacts every single person that they're aware of that, either has applied in past years. Sometimes people go on and off depending on their income. And, if they haven't applied, whatever, to me, the effort by Town Hall to keep an active program is absolutely amazing. And the other, to me, oh, there comes Lauren. So I've just given you an advertisement, Lauren. So maybe you can update us. If your home, condominium, a co-op is valued up to what in terms of market value, can you use this program? And it is indexed in terms of income and all too, which I think Kip has already said.
Yes, so the way it stands right now, with the information that we have is from last year's program. We can't determine, or we won't determine the income and the assessment until we have to get past October 1st. My projection is on the income portion of it, the income we're at $78,000 now as a ceiling for the income. That's adjusted by the cost of living. And because the COLA has gone up significantly over the last couple of years, I would imagine that that will go up significantly again this year. So we should get a good bump in the actual income. The price that we actually put for the assessment, the current assessment is $1.8 million, which is equivalent to a $2.6 million home. That's based upon all the sales and the median sale prices from last October to this October. So we haven't been able to do that yet, but we will calculate that shortly after October 1st, and we'll determine that. I would imagine that may go up as well. I'm not sure, based upon our sales information. Okay?
It's like 2.653, right?
Right, it's, yes, $2,653,000 is the fair market value of a home. As long as your value is less than that, you're entitled to get this program.
So it's a great program. Leslie?
The income, though, adjusts
It
pretty
increases.
quickly down. Your ability to obtain the full amount of the relief starts at a lower income level, and it just.
Right, it's much lower. And
completes.
actually, yes, did we mention the, yeah, okay. No, that's how I have it. Majority of the people who are on this program are on the lower level. If you'll notice that the state program that we have two, let me pull that up for a second. Those income levels, if you qualify for the state, you'll automatically qualify for the local. The state income last year, the highest income was about $48,000. So if you're on the state program, you automatically are eligible for the local as well. And we have over 200 or so of our applicants are qualified for that. So we know that's a data point that we know that a majority of our seniors are below that income level. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve the modifications to the Senior Disabled Homeowners Tax Relief Program.
I'll second.
And so moved by Leslie, second by Nisha Arora. And since this is a different kind of business item, I don't think we do routine, non-routine. I think we just send it on to the BET with our recommendation, correct?
Is that
Okay, so those in favor? So once again, 400, this is unanimous. Thank you very much for coming over. We're sorry for our delays, but we had a busy agenda.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now, Amy Siebert, Commissioner of Public Works. Amy Siebert is here to present for the Public Works Department a request, to request $2 million for an additional appropriation for the GHS soil remediation program. And she's going to sort of summarize why this is needed and how important it is.
So thank you for that. Again, Amy Siebert, Commissioner of Public Works here. So I'm here to talk about how this summer we've been doing ongoing work in Greenwich High School on soil remediation. The work this summer has been fields 2, 5, and some other minor areas around the Greenwich High School site. And fields 2 and 5 are those grass, turf, baseball, and softball fields, if folks are familiar with the high school site. And so what we've found in those fields is, as we've done our sampling work, you have to do things called step outs. As you dig a big square, you have to check the sides and the bottom of the square to determine if there's any more material that you have to take out. And you may see soil that looks of bad quality as you excavate, things that you wouldn't see until you dug that hole in the ground, even with all the characterization that we've done to date there. So what it has resulted in is that this summer, we've taken out more material out of Field 2, some extra out of Field 5, and we're continuing on with some of these step-outs. So we realized we needed to get in here, since we all know we want to get this finished, and we needed to come in and get that funding for all the work surrounding that, because there's not only the excavation, transportation, and disposal of the soil, there's all the backfill you need, there's all the sampling, there are the things surrounding all this work that come together and created this request. In addition, we found certain material this year. We found that some of the material we're taking out has to be disposed of at a specialty disposal site. It is more hazardous than the other materials we've typically been taking out, the less than 50 parts PCBs and the greater than 50 parts PCBs. We now have a high hazard waste as well that we've found out there based on the soil characterization. And that also increased some of the cost because that's material we had not run into before in terms of disposal. So putting that all together, we found ourselves saying, all right, how do we estimate this and get this into you folks to ask for this so that we could continue all this work so we can get those things backfilled, seeded, sodded, and hopefully have good weather, see the grass grow, and get the heck out of at least that part of the Greenwich High School hair, get off those fields. It would be nice to be done with them for once and for all and move on. So happy to answer any questions. I know a bunch of you all heard these spiels last night, so this is for the benefit of anyone else who didn't get to come. And thank you all for helping out yesterday. Appreciate the support out there as we're trying to get this done.
So Amy, this isn't a question, it's just, but I did attend committee meetings last evening, and there was a question about how much the town has appropriated to date for the Greenwich High School field remediation projects, and that those appropriations began in the fiscal year 2012 budget, and to date, without inclusion of this $2 million, the total budget that we have is, as I understand, is 38, what is it here? $38,365,000. And so I shared a copy with Amy too, so that if she attends any committee meetings tonight or gets questions with the districts over the rest of the weeks, that, she has that information too, so. And then I think I will add at this point in time that since we're talking about it with the ladder truck, that this particular project, while the CIP, while this blue sheet does say that it's being taken out of contingency, I believe it's being taken out of bonding and it needs to be corrected. Is that correct? And we will then go on, and so we'll just correct that sheet for Monday night's meeting, Amy? Okay?
Terrific.
And then, but do we have any questions, or do I have any motions to approve?
I'll make, and we're approving the financing separately. I'll make the motion to approve the $2 million additional appropriation for the Greenwich High School soil remediation project.
I'll second.
And so moved by Leslie Moriarty and seconded by Nisha Arora. Leslie, is this, and Nisha, are you thinking of this as being routine?
I would also think this should be routine.
Routine? Nisha, are you okay with it? And again, I think you're considering that we need to make a correction to the sheet, correct? As I suggested to Roland?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So those in favor? So that motion passes 4-0-0 unanimously.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I guess, can I
So-
make another motion?
So, yes.
You want to introduce it first, or? I'll make a motion to approve a bonding resolution to finance the $2 million for the high school soil remediation project.
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
Was this the one that Eleanor found a typo?
The third line, Greenwich, the N is missing
Okay,
from the heading.
okay, all right,
It will be fixed.
okay, just,
We'll have to correct it in the packet.
But thank you for bringing up, it's just, you
well,
know,
I have to be perfectly honest, I haven't read each and every word on this bonding resolution, but I am going to have faith in the comptroller that it is the standard budget resolution, bonding resolution, fixing the typo,
per Robinson and Cole.
per Robinson and Cole, correct.
I was going to take a vote. Are we ready to take a vote? Those in favor? Okay, so that motion has passed 4-0-0 unanimously. And I honestly don't know, do we say routine or non-routine on this? I
Well,
guess the
typically
rest of
we
it was
vote,
routine.
it's routine. Typically, we would vote for them together. We didn't do
Right.
that in the motion this time, but I think they're a pair.
Okay, so our original motion, and then this one, this will also be routine. Okay, so moving down the agenda, economic conditions. We don't have any kind of report attached because, you know, very fortunately, Roland is back with us, but he's been gone for about 2.5 weeks, and we really missed him. Unfortunately, he wasn't on vacation, he was on jury duty, so. Okay, those, we also have minutes for July 11th. Our last regular meeting before our summer break, do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the July 11th minutes.
And I'll second.
Nisha Aurora, seconds, those in favor? Okay, so that's also
Can I-
4-0-0 vote.
Can I make one comment? And you may be referring to it shortly, but typically at the September meeting, we start discussing budget guidelines. And we're delayed in doing that, so I'm just going to ask you your expected timing for
so
our committee to take those up.
I think we have brought them up and, you know, at the September meeting, and sometimes we've done it a little later. I think other years we just said that we're working on them or whatever. We've had a little, you know, delay this year for just getting information in. As we know, there's been some delays in our financial statements, so Pete and Roland, the data that would normally come in a bit earlier is, you know, being collected a bit later. And then, of course, with Roland out for the last 2.5 weeks, that's also slowed down. But that will accelerate over the next day or two. And I think you have all the information, at least where we are so far. And we will get working on this immediately. And you will be hearing and working with us, everyone else. Okay. So
Make a motion.
I have no other further comments on this other than, you know, we will be working on those. That's, you know, a fall project. There's no question about that. And Pete and Roland also, we greatly appreciate both of their help. And also, we know that Pete has done like about triple duty over the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's been a really busy time with many different issues, so we're very thankful and appreciative of all the work you've done. And it has been a period like I don't ever remember having been on the BET for August and into September. So thank you. And also, you know, thank you for the whole team that works together. I mean, in Roland's absence, you know, I know Pete would turn to Maureen or Martha or, you know, Shira to do things that might not necessarily they would be doing. So thank you, Pete and team, everyone. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 3:25.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by Nisha Rohr at 3:25 to adjourn. Those in favor? Okay, great, thank you very much.